It's officially a 4-game losing streak for the Boston Bruins that has basically confirmed this team is who we thought they were going to be. One that struggles to score and who's unable to hang with the NHL's best.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Monday, October 20th. Thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's episode, we are going to discuss a couple losses over the weekend to the Colorado Avalanche and the Utah Mammoth, the key storylines, stats from those losses, as well as the significance of where they stand here with a 3-4 record through 7 games. We'll also anoint a Bruin of the day and talk about the week ahead with a pretty emotional one on tap for tomorrow with Brad Marchand and the Florida Panthers set to visit TD Garden. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder. You can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. And you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes, at Ian C. McLaren. I'm a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for 20 years. And currently talking about the Bruins on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, so the Bruins, 4 straight losses, and the questions are starting to pile up pretty quickly here. We saw some positive signs in the 3-0 start for this team. But then if you're looking at the schedule overall through 7 games, I probably had them down for a couple wins, ones that they got over Buffalo, Chicago. The Washington win was a nice surprise. But then over the past 4 games, we've had Tampa Bay, Vegas, Colorado, Utah, and now with Florida coming up this week, Anaheim, and then Colorado. We'll discuss that a bit later on. But this team, as we predicted, is really struggling to score. And it came to a point where on Saturday in Colorado, Marco Sturm benched David Pastrnak, Pavel Zacha, Elias Lindholm for the final minutes, sending a message that accountability does apply to everyone on this roster. Last night, Casey Mittelstadt, who was expected to center the second line and help stabilize the offense, he was a healthy scratch. Sturm called it a message to the group, emphasizing the Bruins' best players haven't been that. And in order for this team to compete, they not only need their top line to be rolling each and every single night, but they're going to need that secondary scoring. We'll dig into the stats a bit later on in the podcast, but the good news was David Pastrnak responded, continues to do his part by scoring 2 goals against the Mammoth. He's now up to 4 goals, 8 points through 7 games. He's doing his part. He responded positively to the benching, knew that he had to get better, and he came out and he did just that. He's got 8 points through 7 games. Not exactly, on pace for his best, but still, he's on pace for 47 goals, 47 assists for 94 points at the moment. And that's with going a couple games without having recorded any points. The Bruins have not been able to find any mix for the second line as of right now, though. Pavel Zacha had been bumped to the first line. Morgan Geekie bumped down. They tried Marat Husnudinov On the second line, Zacha up there, Mikey Eyssimont. There's just not enough offensive depth on this team for guys not to be performing up to their potential and for, expecting the bottom six to chip in and help carry this team along. Pastrnak did have that 2-goal night, but that was not enough to stop the slide. Nobody else stepped up last night either. Sturm praised the effort after the game, but admitted the fourth line is doing a lot of heavy lifting for this team, and they need their big guys to step up. So the depth is kind of working. It's working pretty hard, but the Bruins have not been able to find any scoring, and they haven't really been able to generate much in the way of offensive opportunities. John Beecher stepped into the lineup. He scored the other night. He's looked pretty good alongside Sean Corrali and Mark Kastelic. Kastelic, who had a just a banger of a fight with Jake O'Brien. Husnudinov was with Zacha and Arvidsson last night. Tanner Jeannot, Fraser Minton, Mikey Eyssimont on the third line. These are all good guys. They're all character guys who bring it every night. But it's not a lack of effort that is hurting this team. It's just a lack of skilled guys who can create and generate offense consistently. And until Sturm can find the right mix, someone steps up alongside David Pastrnak, the Bruins are going to stay stuck between the promise of a 3-0 start and the reality of a 4-game losing streak with not much hope on the horizon this week. There's going to be 3 pretty tough games. Even Anaheim is not an easy out at the moment. And the Bruins, look, they are just not one of the better teams in the NHL. It's just a fact. Pastrnak, 8 points. Pavel Zacha, 6 points. Elias Lindholm has cooled down after a pretty rocking start. Morgan Geekie, fallen off a bit. He's only got 4 points through 7 games. Casey Mittelstadt, who was scratched, only 2 goals in 6 games. Fraser Minton has the 1 overtime winner, but just 1 point. Same with Husnudinov. Beecher, Arvidsson with a single assist. He was a guy that was projected to come in to provide some scoring in the middle six and perhaps get 20-something goals this year, 15 goals. Right now, it's just not going to cut it, and there's some real questions about whether they should look to the farm for reinforcements. And we'll touch on that a bit later on in the podcast. But the big storyline over the weekend, of course, was the benching of David Pastrnak. He came back, responded well with 2 goals, but it was still a loss to the Utah Mammoth, their 4th in a row, and largely because nobody else was able to step up and help him along in that one. The Bruins, they're being wildly outshot. They're being outchanced. We'll dig a bit more into the numbers and the significance of this 4-game losing streak here as the podcast continues. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. And that's why people have started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's helping people organize their accounts, track their spending, and get a better handle on their investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder for you. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Thanks so much again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Everydayers know the best way to keep up is to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube so that you never miss a thing. Over the weekend, we discussed on the YouTube channel how David Pastrnak was benched. He responded with a couple goals. The Bruins overall 4 losses in a row with a record now of 3-4-0. Through 7 games, the Bruins are just not creating enough offense. And that's just the long and short of it. If you look at their high danger chances for and against at 5-on-5, which is where the majority of the game is played, the Bruins have the second worst differential in the NHL. They've generated 39 high danger chances at 5-on-5, but they've allowed 65, which is second most in the NHL. Only the Chicago Blackhawks have allowed more. That gives the Bruins a high danger chance differential of 37.5%. So when they're during gameplay, you look at all the high danger chances that have been generated during Bruins games this season, and they have only 37.5% of those opportunities. When it comes to shots at 5-on-5, just straight shots, the Bruins have a 47.14% of those. So 132 for, 148 against. And they also have a shot attempt differential of 45.58, which is 5th worst in the NHL. So they're just not getting enough pucks towards the net. They're not getting enough pucks on net, and they're not getting enough high danger opportunities as well. So it's kind of a miracle that they are 3-4 with those numbers. When it comes to just shots on goal, right now, the differential isn't that great either. Their goal differential bounced to under 0, so they have now a negative goal differential on the season. Shots allowed per game for the Boston Bruins, they are allowing 29.6, which is 12th in the NHL. Not too bad, but again, the high danger chances are what is killing them. They've gotten pretty decent goaltending so far this season, but the fact is they just are not generating enough to sustain it. At 5-on-5, they rank actually 25th in save percentage, 89.19. The penalty kill has been really helping them. That's been one of their strengths so far this season. That's really keeping them afloat. They rank 6th in the NHL with a 90% kill rate. If that was close to where it was last season, they'd be losing some pretty lopsided games here. So there are some encouraging signs, right? They have been able to keep games close. All the, most of the games aside from the Colorado game have been 1 goal differential, so they're not getting blown away. In fact, the Saturday game against Colorado was one in which they could have been, but Jeremy Swayman kept them very much in it. Jonas Korpisalo made some big saves for them as well last night. But the Bruins are generating like a handful of high danger chances at 5-on-5 per game. Whereas teams like Colorado, Vegas, Dallas, Florida, those are the top tier teams. They're averaging 12 to 13 high danger chances per game. That means that even when the Bruins are getting pucks into the zone, they're not really creating much chaos in front of the net. There's too many perimeter plays, not enough traffic, and no sustained cycle presence. And teams that consistently finish near the bottom in this category rarely make the playoffs, let alone contend. It's an early sign that Boston's offensive design isn't necessarily cold. It's just not functioning properly. The Bruins have also recorded 5 or fewer shots on goal in the third period 3 times already this season. And that's not a great trend. It speaks to that lack of offensive creativity or able to get through the defense when games tighten up. And it's just an over-reliance on David Pastrnak to create late chances. If you only have one guy who's got reliable finish, D is going to be all over him. The other guys don't know what to do with the puck. And they've lost 3 one-goal games during this losing streak. They're not able to close strong. In fact, they're fading when it matters. The top line has not been great either so far this season. 5-on-5 ice time so far this season, about 64 minutes. 1 goal for, 1 goal against, and only 1 shot on goal from this trio in that game against Colorado. Simply not good enough for the quote-unquote top unit. The chemistry between Lindholm and Pastrnak looked to be developing late last season, but it hasn't carried over. And there's some defensive gaps that are kind of outweighing the offensive push. One of the most consistent groups for this team has been the fourth line. It's been largely Kuraly, Kastelic, and then Husnudinov has been there. Beecher, AC Mont have been down there at points. They're doing a lot of the work, but they cannot do that every night. And of course, it all culminated in Casey Mittelstadt being a healthy scratch on Sunday. Stretch of quiet games, 0 shot attempts in the game against Colorado, which is a team that he played for last season. They traded him. You'd think there'd be a bit of a revenge factor there, or wanting to show them that he's not the guy that they thought they were getting rid of and needed Charlie Coyle as an upgrade. He was brought in to try to answer the second line center question, one of the team's biggest storylines this season, but through 7 games, he has not stabilized that role at all. And Sturm's decision sends a message about accountability, but it also highlights that Boston doesn't have a lot of viable internal options down the middle. If Zacha and Mittelstadt both struggle, it leaves the Bruins with no true second-line center solution. And that's a pretty big flaw for a team built around one elite winger. Could Matt Poitras be the answer? Could Georgi Merkulov be the answer? Look, David Pastrnak has been doing his thing. Elite production, driving nearly 30% of Boston's total offense. But the Bruins are in danger of becoming a one-line team, and even that line can't be relied upon each and every night. So, big picture here is the underlying trends say the Bruins are destined to repeat last season's bottoming out. David Pastrnak still elite, but increasingly unsupported. And Sturm's facing a really early identity test here. Fix the structure or risk things going off the rails here pretty easily. Now, 4 straight losses don't kill a season. It happens. But the underlying numbers show this team is losing the way fragile teams lose. Not enough shots in critical moments. Not enough creation from their best players. Not enough support from the depth players, and not enough answers from the head coach yet. They're skating hard, but until they fix their offensive blueprint, hard work without finish will keep turning into empty results. Now, the Providence Bruins, on the other hand, a perfect 4-0 to start the season, and they've got some guys down there who are off to tremendous starts. Georgi Merkulov, 2 goals, 5 assists through 4 games. Fabian Lysell, 3 goals, 3 assists. Alex Steeves, 3 goals, 3 assists. Matej Blumel, 2 goals, 4 assists. Radley Tufte even, 3 goals, 2 assists. Matt Poitras, 5 assists so far this season. Even Patrick Brown is averaging more than a point per game with 2 goals, 3 assists. So do the Bruins look to shake things up a bit by promoting one of these guys or a couple of these guys to the NHL? It's not out of the realm of possibility. And a lot of people say, well, these guys didn't take the opportunity in the preseason. They have not blown us away in very limited sample sizes at the NHL level, but that's not a reason not to call them up. When the Bruins are stagnating early, before things really get off the rails, you need to try anything you can to boost this offense. And some of these guys down in the AHL could be capable of doing just that. All right, coming up, we're going to name today's Bruin of the day, as well as take a quick look at the week ahead. It's all coming up here on Locked On Boston Bruins. I hope you're all enjoying the NFL season so far, and you can make it even more exciting with a FanDuel offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. People love using FanDuel because it gives them so many ways to play. You can build parlays, try player props, even follow the live lines during games. Makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today to get started. Before we take a quick look at the week ahead, I wanted to announce today's Bruin of the day. And I'm going down to the college ranks and giving some early props to Dean Letourneau. This was a guy who was drafted in the first round by the Boston Bruins in 2024. And in 36 games for Boston College last season, he only had 3 assists, period, total, 3 points. This season so far, played 4 games. He's got 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points, already eclipsing last year's point total. His first couple goals at the college level, still only 19 years old and a lot of room to grow, not necessarily physically because he's 6'7" and like 220, but if he can continue to grow as a hockey player, then the Bruins, could really have something there in Dean Letourneau, although he remains a pretty long-term project for this team. All right, it's going to be a big day tomorrow for the Boston Bruins as they welcome Brad Marchand and the Florida Panthers to TD Garden. It will be Marchand's first trip back since being traded to Florida. He's said that it's going to be, pretty weird, which, to say the least, that will be the case. There was some shenanigans over the weekend with Marchand. He was fined the maximum allowable penalty for taking Rasmus Dahlin's helmet to the penalty box, taking off the straps. Pastrnak has said it's used the same word, definitely going to be weird when the Bruins come home and then have to prepare for that. Marchand's been a long time Bruin. Pretty sure it's going to be special and hard at the same time for him. For the Bruins, they have other stuff to worry about. So it's going to be good to see him back, but at the same time, maintain focus. And Charlie McAvoy echoed that as well by saying he'll give him a hug after the game. Marchand's going to be all over, running his mouth, Pastrnak said. Can't wait for the matchup. It will be really fun. Maybe he'll be too nice. We'll see. I doubt that. Sorry, Pasta. So that's going to be a big game, emotional return, big ovation, I'm sure, tribute video, etc. But it's a big game for the Bruins. They got to stop the bleeding here and get back in the win column. Just straight up. Tomorrow we'll update the Atlantic Division power rankings. Last week, the Bruins were second. Not going to be that high this week, although still not in the bottom for sure. So there's, the ship is not sinking quite as quickly as some might believe. Following that, they will host the Anaheim Ducks, a better team this season. Lucas Dostal is a fantastic goalie. They have more offensive firepower, still working on some defensive issues there. And then they host the Colorado Avalanche at 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. So an Avalanche team that just took it to them pretty good this past Saturday. Second and final meeting between these two teams coming up this Saturday. That is going to be a big one. We will, of course, preview and recap all of these games, bringing you the storylines, the stats, and the significance of each of them as they come. Tomorrow, we'll update the Atlantic Division power rankings. It's all part of the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, your favorite team every single day. Become an everydayer by subscribing on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Disappointing weekend for the Bruins. Not going to lie, I was kind of preoccupied with, especially on Sunday night, the Toronto Blue Jays and Seattle Mariners series. Big Game 7 coming up tonight. If you're like me, a Bruins fan in Canada, you will be watching that one pretty closely as well. All right, that's it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, my friends. Please do check out the Locked On NHL Game Night podcast next. All the latest from around the NHL, every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on the Locked On NHL YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please do the same for Locked On Boston Bruins. Tell a Bruins loving family member or friend in your life today about the show. You can comment on YouTube or join the conversation on social at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me at Ian C. McLaren. Please take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.